Hello and welcome back to the VolReport show. I'm Ryan Sylvia with VolReport on Rivals.com, and today we have a very special guest with us, Mark Passwaters of Aggie Yell, that is Texas A&M site on Rivals.com. Make sure you guys check that out. But with Tennessee coming off this bye week and heading into a game with Texas A&M, I thought it'd be a good time to hop onto the VolReport show with Mark and kind of get to know this opponent that Tennessee is going to be facing, first time that they're clashing since that COVID year in 2020, obviously an SEC West team. So in the current format, not a team that Tennessee sees very often. Let's start off. I like to ask this to really all the guys we talk with when we do these opponent previews is kind of where is the fan base at? Are they happy with how the season has started? Do they want more? And then kind of what's the energy around the team right now at this point in the year?
I think the energy around the team is good. They feel like they're significantly better than they were last year. They played Alabama tough. Feel like they should have won that game. The fan base feels the same, and that's why they're annoyed. Honestly, you go back to week 2 against Miami. A&M played a very conservative game plan on both sides of the ball, and it burned them. After that, all of a sudden, this defense has come alive. They're sacking everybody because they're blitzing, and they didn't try to do that against Miami. And now people think, well, you should have won that game. And obviously, they feel like the game was given away this past weekend against Alabama. So 4-2 is significantly better than last year, but the coulda, shoulda, wouldas are definitely out, and people are, pretty peeved at this point to be 4-2.
Interesting kind of perspective for Texas A&M, obviously a program similar to Tennessee where there's very high expectations, and if you don't reach those, the fan base can kind of get upset very quickly. But a positive for Texas A&M at this point in the year has been on the defensive end. That pass rush has been elite. One of, if not the best unit in the SEC, along with Tennessee, probably the best two statistical units at getting after the quarterback at this point. 26 sacks led by Edgerrin Cooper. What makes this pass rush so effective, and what kind of is giving other teams trouble?
Well, I think there are two things. One, you've got a tremendous amount of talent. These guys can go out and win one-on-one matchups as is, but the defensive line is elite. On their own, they have 30 and a half tackles for loss and 15 sacks. So they can get after it on their own. But I think that DJ Durkin has done a very good job I think Jimbo Fisher actually kind of prodded him and said, okay, enough of this crap. You were conservative last year and it cost us. You've been conservative for the first 2 games and it's cost us. Turn it loose. And since then, against Auburn, Arkansas, and Alabama, they've had 20 of the 26 sacks. So I think that they've done a good job bringing blitzers from all sorts of different directions. They'll bring them from the corners. The linebackers will come. The nickels will come. They give a lot of different looks. And, they basically just beaten guys one-on-one as well. And all of that has come together to basically create havoc the last 3 games.
One of those guys, Walter Nolan. So when you go back to his recruitment, it came down really between Tennessee and A&M. And I think a lot of people expected him to stay home, a guy that graduated from Powell High School here in Knoxville. 5-star, number 2 national, number 1 at his position. He's putting together a solid year so far, second on the team in sacks with 422 total tackles. Kind of how has he been? Just an update for those Tennessee fans that followed his recruitment and maybe expect him to go to Tennessee. How has he done so far in his career at A&M? And I know it might be tough to kind of tell, but do you expect there to be any sort of emotions either way about coming back to Knoxville for him?
Well, to the first part of the question, he was good last year. He's been excellent this year. As far as I'm concerned, behind Edgerrin Cooper, he's been the second best player on the defense. He has the benefit of playing next to McKinley Jackson, senior defensive tackle who was outstanding last season. I think they may be the best 1-2 punch, not just in the SEC, but the country at that position. Because if you double one, the other's coming for you. And most teams have picked their poison by doubling Jackson, and that's left Nolan one-on-one, and he's just eating people alive. In terms of emotion, I'm sure it'll be emotional for him. He was very emotional after last week's game. He really felt like they should have won it. there were tears on the sideline. I mean, they gave that game away. They know it,
Mhm.
and it's extraordinarily frustrating for them. But yeah, I can't imagine there wouldn't be emotion for him to come back to Knoxville. And I kind of curious to see what the reception may be. I mean, is it going to be the hometown boy makes good, or oh, you traitor, you went to A&M instead of Tennessee?
Yeah, I think that's going to be interesting to kind of look for as well, because I really can't tell exactly which way it's going to lean so far. Is it, like you said, is it going to be like that? That's our guy. He's from Knoxville, just like us, and we're so proud of him. Or is it going to be, I can't believe that you left us type of
Mhm.
situation? So that will be something kind of interesting to look out for. I think is that fan reaction if he makes a big play, or if that name kind of gets called. But let's swing over to the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, the quarterback change now. Max Johnson, the Tennessee coaching staff pretty much said, Tim Banks, the defense coordinator, literally said, I don't see a difference at this point between the two QBs, just because there hasn't been much of a lack of production. A lot of that was credited to just kind of the experience Max Johnson has. In your opinion, what are the differences between the two guys, and what are you getting out of Max Johnson at this point in his career?
Well, I think that the two biggest differences between Max and Connor Wigman, who was the starter before he got hurt, is Wigman is a little more mobile, a little more agile. He also gets the ball out quicker. I think those were the two things that allowed him to win the quarterback competition in the summer, because it was really close. It was really, really close between those two. Max is a proven commodity in the SEC now. He's started games each of the last two seasons for A&M. He was the starter at LSU before that. So going on the road is not going to be anything new for him. He's been there and done that. Uh, for the most part, he's been, real good, real judicious with his throws, 7 touchdowns and 2 picks. Uh, I think that the biggest problem that was shown last weekend was he does have a tendency to hold on to the ball too long. And Alabama took advantage of that in the second half of that game. And I think that he's going to have to get the ball out faster. And I think that Bobby Petrino needs to help him out with quicker routes. I think the hot read is going to be really important in this game, and that's going to lead to guys like Aniyah Smith and Moose Muhammad getting the ball.
You just mentioned Petrino. How have you felt that his offense has worked this year at A&M, and kind of what grade would you give him at this point in the year?
Considering what they were last year, I give them a flat out A. It's been light years better. Last week was the first time in this season that they've gone under 400 yards of total offense. They're averaging 35 points. They only reached 31 points offensively last year twice. So they're averaging better than their best last year. In terms of yards per game, they're 60 yards a game better. Passing game is infinitely better. The running game has taken a bit of a step back, but I think that's because, well, you see what Devon Achane is
Yeah.
doing in Miami. That's what he was doing at A&M. So that was almost inevitable. But they've got some guys in the backfield who can still hurt you. Le'Veon Moss, I think, is starting to come into his own. So it's not like they can't run. It's with Max, it's become a little more balanced. You've seen the running game become increasingly important. With Wigman, they were just tossing it all over the place.
Is that kind of the biggest difference that you see from obviously a very disappointing season last year, not what the expectations were, to now? Is it just that kind of step in offensive production, or is it something else?
Oh, I think that that's the primary thing, but I think you also have things like just mindset.
Mhm.
I think the attitude of the team is better. They had some guys in there last year that honestly were a detriment, and most all of them are gone. And I think that they've got the kind of character that they need. And I think the fact that Jimbo has stepped back from trying to run the offense and become more of a CEO coach
Mhm.
has helped them overall, because he's able to recognize, I think, potential problems in the locker room before they really fester.
What helping Max Johnson, obviously, two very impressive targets at wide receiver in Aniyah Smith and Evan Stewart. What are their strengths? What do you expect them to be able to do against this Tennessee defense? And just kind of what is that overall makeup of that wide receiver room?
Well, I think that if Tennessee focuses solely on Aniyah Smith and Evan Stewart, they're in trouble, because there are
Mhm.
other guys that are going to get them. Moose Muhammad and Noah Thomas and Jade Walker, all these guys are really good. This is probably the best A&M receiver core, at least in a decade and possibly ever. They're really good. Stewart, a little undersized, about 6 foot, but he's got great speed. He gets open. His cuts are remarkable. He left Kool-Aid McKinstry in the dust on a up and out last weekend, or out and up last weekend, and that very rarely happens. Once Anais gets the ball in his hands, he's one of the most elusive players in college football. He's an incredible punt returner. If you get him one-on-one with somebody, odds are he's going to make a miss. So those guys have been Max's first and second targets. Target 3 is usually his brother, Jake, the tight end. But Moose came on last weekend. He had a couple big catches. And if Noah Thomas is healthy, he's a guy that people are going to have trouble matching up with because he's 6'5". He's really fast. He can go up and get the ball, and he doesn't mind being physical, playing bump and run against a corner. So, they have some options. I mean, it would be maybe too much to say pick your poison, but you've got to be judicious on how you play these guys.
You mentioned Jake Johnson. I was watching. I think a lot of people were watching that A&M Alabama game last week, and every single time Max throws it to Jake, you hear, I'm targeting his brother again. How has that connection been, though? 17 receptions, 156 yards, statistically the third most receptions, third most yards. He's found the end zone twice. Kind of what are you getting out of that at the tight end position?
Honestly, they're doing well. They're getting production out of Jake. It's not as good at tight end as it could be because the best guy they have, Donovan Green, tore his ACL in the summer and he's out for the year. He's going to be special. But Jake is no slouch himself. He's been an excellent safety valve for Max. He's obviously got those 2 touchdowns, both from his brother. You can tell that these guys have been throwing the ball to one another their entire lives because there's that, that unspoken ability to figure out where, Jake's going to be and where Max is going to have to throw and all that. And it's been, really helpful. They had a touchdown against Auburn. They had a touchdown against Alabama. Huge first down late in the first half against Arkansas, where Jake had to go up and make a big catch. So certainly that Johnson and Johnson combination has been extremely helpful for the Aggies.
You mentioned earlier too replacing Devon Achane and kind of how that's maybe been somewhat of a growing pain trying to find that other guy. You mentioned Le'Veon Moss as a guy that stepped up as well, 325 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. But how is that run game progressing? Is it one of those situations where you can kind of see it game by game taking the step in the right direction, or is it still kind of maybe pulling teeth to get that run game going?
Well, they performed pretty well against Auburn. They performed really well against Arkansas. Alabama was a step back, but I think that, you got to give Alabama a lot of credit. They're just good. But you're starting to see them iron out who's going to get the most carries. And Moss is the guy that the last 2-3 games has been the one. And I think that should be. He's been the most complete of the backs. He's the most physical. He also doesn't dance around. If he gets the ball, he hits the hole. And Amari Daniels is really good as well, but he likes to try to bounce it outside and get the big run when he should probably just be going north-south. Reuben Owens is going to be excellent in time. He's a true freshman. He's still figuring this thing out, but if you get him in the open field, he's dynamic. But Moss right now is the most complete of the 3 backs. I think in a slugfest like I anticipate this game will be, he'll be the fellow in the backfield the majority of the time.
For Tennessee fans, it almost reminds me of last year's Tennessee team. Same 3 guys as this year for Tennessee, but you have those 2 guys, Jabari Small, Jalen Wright, who are kind of getting the bulk of those carries, and one's the more downhill runner, one likes to bounce a little bit more, and then you have that freshman who was Dylan Sampson, now sophomore, who was kind of the home run hitter who, if you could tell he had the bright future. So in some ways, from that, it kind of reminds me of that type of situation. You have those 2 guys, but you can tell that you also have that foundation to build forward on. Let's do score predictions. You don't have to give me an exact score if you don't have one yet, but how do you see this game going? How do you see the margin of victory for either way looking exactly, and just kind of what are your overall thoughts about what we'll see Saturday?
Well, I think there are two things that you got to look at. One, can A&M keep Max upright? Uh, obviously 5 sacks last weekend against Alabama is not good. Obviously, Tennessee brings the heat. Uh, if they can keep him upright, then they'll move the ball and they'll probably score some points. On the other hand, can A&M continue to stop the run? You've got the number 8 rush defense against the number 7 rush offense, and that's that just screams slugfest to me.
Yeah.
They absolutely shut Alabama down. I mean, 26 carries, 23 yards, along with the 6 sacks. But it's honestly, it's kind of defensively, it's kind of like mirror images of each other. They're so similar in how they operate. A&M has not won on the road in a while. I do like, talent on talent. I think A&M's better, but I really think this game's going to be close. I can't see it being a high scoring game. I think that this, there's going to be a lot more defense played than offense, and it may be a turnover that decides this thing.
Do you have a lean either way? You don't have to say if you don't have one, but or is it just kind of a coin flip at this point?
They got it as a 3.5 point game. That's about the way I look at it. It's really close. It's an honest to goodness coin flip. Both teams, I wouldn't say they're mirror images of one another, but they have an awful lot of similarities in terms of how they play schematically on both sides of the ball, how their results have gone so far this year. It's a very tough game to call, but I think that whoever wins it is going to be in a real good position going forward.
All right, Mark, that is all we have, but make sure you tell everyone where they can kind of find your work, where they can follow you on Twitter and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, I'm at MVP Rivals on Twitter, and obviously AggieYell.com. I'm actually working on our game previews where we break down the offense against the defense and the defense against the offense. So obviously there will be a lot of Tennessee talk this week. So if you'd like to swing by, feel free.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining me. Guys, make sure you head over to VolReport.com as well for all of our content over there. Hop in the Rocky Top Forum, grab yourself a subscription. Links to everything you need is in the description. And thank you for watching.